Oh, you're right, we can see ourselves. We've just noticed that we're staring back at ourselves from the screens up front. Good morning, everybody. My name is Adam Greene. I'm with the ILO Bureau for Employers Activities, and my role this morning is very simply to watch the clock. So this is my main objective. We have 5 panelists, and I don't know how much time you've been given. 10 minutes, roughly each. Okay, so if we can finish within an hour, then we'd have at least 30 minutes for discussion, which will hopefully we'll take questions from the floor and hopefully have enough time for discussion. The bios for the speakers are in the packet, so I'm not going to take the time to read through everything. But obviously, just to flag the sessions on the business case for digital accessibility and the different ways we can come at that. And there's an order in the agenda, so I'm going to stick with that order as opposed to how we're sitting up here, because that was kind of last minute. Cécile. Thank you. Senior Manager for Inclusion and Diversity with Accenture. We'll start with you and go from there. Are you using presentations?
Yes. Should I go there?
No, I do it.
It's digital, so I should be able to do it, but... I can totally do it. Yeah.
You can start and pull it up.
So hello everyone, I'm Cécile Rochet. I work for Accenture. I lead inclusion and diversity for Europe, and I'm also in charge of innovation at Accenture. So that's why also I'm here today, because it's a topic really deep to my heart. So we are going to talk about the business case for digital accessibility. I'm sure my colleagues are going to talk about numbers and provide additional information. I wanted to talk more from an Accenture perspective about, yes, the why we are doing this and why it is at the heart of our priorities, but also how we have decided to do it. So if we can move to the first slide, please. Okay, yeah, because I'm not seeing that. That's fine. That's fine. I know my slides almost. So just as a quick intro, the reason why I'm here to talk to you about this topic is because the name of the program for us is Focus on Enablement. So we don't talk anymore about person with disabilities initiatives at Accenture. We talk about Focus on Enablement. Why? Because we know that as part of our priorities for inclusion and diversity, we need to empower everyone to have a successful career at Accenture. And person with disabilities and the focus on enablement has to be one of these priorities, the same way as gender, LGBT, cross-cultural people integration. So that's extremely important to put this topic in the context of broader inclusion. And as you see in inclusion and diversity at Accenture, we have different priorities which would be common to all the segments of diversity. So the first thing, and that's why, again, we really believe that accessibility is a key priority for us, is the inclusion. So how do we build an inclusive workplace at Accenture, and how do we make our environment fully accessible? So that's our first priority. Then we have a second one, which is to make sure we have a good representation of anyone at Accenture, that everyone can bring their authentic self in the workplace. How do we really ensure that we have the right representations of persons with disabilities at Accenture? How do we make sure we provide them with a successful career, the right tools to succeed? The third priority is the leadership commitment. So we need to ensure that our leaders at the top put accent on enablement, focus on enablement as a top priority for ourselves. And the fourth one would be the collaboration with others, and that's why I'm here today. So you see I have highlighted here in the yellow boxes the focus on building a fully accessible environment and an inclusive culture. For some of you, you may have seen a big campaign we have launched recently. The name is Inclusion Starts with I, to really show that we have all the power to create the workplace where everyone can succeed. And we know that in 2017, there is no way anyone can succeed in the workplace without having access to the right tools. At Accenture, we help the heart of our business is our people. So we need to make sure all our people are able to access the tools. No one can do the work today without access to the right technologies. So that has been defined as our key strategic priority for focus on enablement to make a fully accessible workplace for everyone, and I would say for the benefit of everyone, because we really believe that anything that we are going to do for the person with disability is going to benefit any employee. If our applications are more accessible, if the people can just enter their timesheets in a very easy way, everyone will benefit from it. So that has been our key priority and will be in the next 3 years. Moving to the next slide, please. So how we have been doing that? So we decided to build a governance around this focus on enablement and focus on accessibility. Accessibility we divide in 3 big areas. Obviously, the technology accessibility, which is what we are going to talk about today, so the digital accessibility. But we know that there is no success in accessibility if you don't put that into the broader context of accessibility, working also on the workplace accessibility, the buildings, as well as the attitudinal accessibility, which is how everyone else in the workplace is educated to have the right conversations for our people. So the steering committee has been built 1.5 years ago to come back to my initial point about the fact that we need to have leadership totally on board with that. So we have decided to gather all the leaders of the big functions at Accenture. So the technology lead, so the CIO lead at Accenture is part of the committee. We have the workplace lead of Accenture, procurement, communication lead, and also the person who is creating all our learning assets. All these leaders together quarterly meet, agree on the priority for Accenture of this topic, the key areas we are going to investigate in the next few months. And we have a sponsor for this program, so that we are very lucky to have our global legal lead at Accenture, who is running this program and really pushing, ensuring that all the leadership align some resources to work on this topic. So I think it has been really successful because in 1.5 years, we have been able to really have some clearly defined action plans on each of these topics identified. Moving to the next slide, please. So we talked about the governance, so having the right leaders aligned and ensuring the right teams are going to focus on this topic. Now, what are we aiming to do? So we have said that without any numbers, we can't get anywhere. So that's what we have been doing on other topics like gender. Here we say, what is our objective? We need to have 100% of our interactions, the interactions of people with anything like software, devices, services, fully accessible, no obstacle. Everyone should be able to access this application. So that's a pretty bold ambition, but we know that without this strong objective, no one will be driven to the success. And we thought that it would be also good to define non-compliance with the standards of the market as an exception. So we know we will have some places where it's going to be difficult to achieve, but let's look at that as exceptions. So how are we going to monitor the progress? We have the direction, 100%. Now we need to monitor and have some scorecards established. So now we have scorecards established for our own applications. So we know exactly when we have defined the priority applications that our people use, are they accessible? If not, what is the remediation plan? So for example, again, I was talking about the time sheets. That seems a pretty basic one, but in a few months, we have been able to, while carefully monitoring every month, now saying, okay, at the end of last fiscal year, this is fully accessible, green checkbox. We are doing that for our own applications, but we're also doing that for our vendors. As you know, and I'm sure many of you work with vendors, so we need to set the tone when we work with the vendors. We need to have the conversations with them. We need to ask them, where are you in terms of accessible? So how accessible are your products? And if they are not accessible, what is your roadmap? So we also have a scorecard to monitor where our vendors are and ensure that we are going to report at the leadership about our current status. We do the exact same thing for our buildings to ensure which building is accessible, which is not, and when it is not, what is the remediation plan. And the fourth one, and not the least, is we all have a responsibility to make anything accessible. It's not only something driven by the CIO of Accenture, but as employees, we are building content every day. So we need to make sure every employee has a good understanding about how to build accessible contents. We need to make sure that any site that is built by Accenture to promote some employee initiatives are fully accessible, and we need to have marketing and communication with ourselves. Something that I really like that CIO has said in terms of looking at technology accessibility, let's look at the issues as bugs. Let's look at the content of the content we provide. If there is an issue, let's look at that like misspellings. So I think it's a really different mindset that we try to establish, just to, again, the vision and the good is fully accessible. Everything else is exception. So that's what we have been doing, and we will continue to monitor in the next few years with full support of the leadership. And it is reported at the very top level of Accenture every quarter where we are and why we are not exactly where we would like to be. Moving to the next slide. So I wanted to open on a positive note. So we have talked about governance, we have talked about numbers, ambition. Let's talk about the future. So that's why we have selected this topic. We know also that we can't do anything without thinking forward, trying new things, and leveraging the power of technology to enabling our people with disabilities at Accenture. And we have been very lucky to have a lot of passionate people at Accenture working in our innovation labs to say, okay, let us know what our people need today, and we will try to define some innovations that are going to help them. So we have been lucky to have to make some choices because there were so many things that we could have done, but 2 innovations have been developed. One, and I hope I have the time to share the video, the name is Drishti. The name is Drishti, so it's an application that helps the people, so the people who are visually impaired to see the world around them. So obviously we'll leverage artificial intelligence to do that, which is not totally mature, but almost mature. So we need to try. So this application has been developed using Microsoft technology, using face detection, and with this program, it gives us a lot of hope, and it's the beginning of a bigger story. I'm going to share this video, but recently we have built one other initiative which is really interesting is, for example, for the people who use a lot of Skype for business to work in virtual environment. So it was not possible for the people who were hearing impaired to really fully contribute to the conversation. So in that situation, so we have built, again, using the services of artificial intelligence, now the employees can truly be part of the conversation and no one is excluded. So again, there are so many things we could do. I talked about the virtual reality, and we need to try, we need to test with our employees, but more than anything, we need to do it with the employees themselves. And I think that has been the success of each of these initiatives, asking to the people, what do you need? Let's try, let's see what is not working. And there is no success without trying. So I just wanted to add on this positive note, sharing the video of Drishti developed in India, which is probably the market where we have most of our innovative leaders.
India has the largest population of the blind. From past 65 years, we have been empowering the visually challenged persons to bring them in the mainstream society with the assistive technology, and we have employed people in the mainstream industry like banking, telecalling, medical transcription, and all other aspects where we can bring them in the mainstream society.
Accenture is co-innovating with National Association for Blind, India, to build guided assistive solutions leveraging latest artificial intelligence technologies. Accenture has developed an accessibility solution called Drishti. Drishti is an acronym for disambiguating real-time insights for supporting humans with intelligence. Drishti also means vision.
Sorry. Hopefully this one will play.
Yeah, it should work. No, it's fine.
How long is it?
2 minutes? So this one was the one about Skype for Business. I wanted to share with you the other one, but okay, I think that's the one.
India has the largest population of the blind. From past 65 years, we have been empowering the visually challenged persons to bring them in the mainstream society with the assistive technology, and we have employed
As in if you listen through the headphones, you can hear the audio.
India has the largest population of the blind. From past 65 years, we have been empowering the visually challenged persons to bring them in the mainstream society with the assistive technology, and we have employed people in the mainstream industry like banking, telecalling, medical transcription, and all other aspects where we can bring them in the mainstream society.
Accenture is co-innovating with National Association for Blind, India, to build guided assistive solutions leveraging latest artificial intelligence technologies. Accenture has developed an accessibility solution called Drishti. Drishti is an acronym for disambiguating real-time insights for supporting humans with intelligence. Drishti also means vision, and it helps blind people derive insights that enhances the way they live and work. The solution leverages multiple industry-leading artificial intelligence services from Microsoft and others to describe the world around the visually challenged person. Accenture Labs' research in natural language processing is used to aggregate, disambiguate, infer, and generate a coherent narration of the world for the visually impaired.
This solution leverages some of the latest artificial intelligence technologies as well as natural language processing, and it gives the blind people a real-time insight of what's happening around them.
It is a dream come true for blind people. This software will enable us to see the world which we were unable to see previously.
Drishti helps identify objects around the user.
Analyzing the scene. I think there is a cell phone on the table. On deeper analysis, I think it is a black Samsung Galaxy Android phone.
The solution provides natural language generation capability to describe the scene to the visually challenged person. Drishti also narrates English text from printed books and documents using optical character recognition.
Analyzing the scene. I think it is a book on a table. On deeper analysis, it is God's own kitchen book.
The solution uses human-centric design principles and can integrate with smart glasses like Pivot Head to support the visually challenged with information with just a tap on the mobile screen.
Scene captured. Analyzing the scene. I think it is a white sedan.
Smart glasses like this have a camera inbuilt, and then it becomes very interesting because it will talk via Bluetooth to the accessibility solution, and then all you have to do is wear this glass, and as you tap on your cell phone, you can see and hear more about the world around you.
It was very difficult for me to identify the glass doors which are there in these corporate buildings, and I used to bang on those glass doors. But now with the solution created by Accenture, helps me to identify those glass doors.
Analyzing the scene. There is a glass door in front of you.
And with the support of this solution, I can walk into those doors without hurting myself.
The solution can be used to describe the close surroundings.
Analyzing the scene. 2 people were detected. Age 37.3 years old male who is smiling. And 35.2-year-old male who is smiling.
The solution also incorporates responsible AI by ensuring data privacy and not storing any images internally. Drishti can also be used to identify new Indian currency notes, which is often confused with lower denomination notes by the blind.
After demonetization, it has become very difficult to identify the currency, but the solution supports me even to identify those new currencies, which is very, very helpful so that I cannot be cheated.
Analyzing the scene. I think this is a 500 Indian rupee note.
We are very happy to say that this is a solution a lot of people are using, and they are feeling that they're getting more empowered to lead a normal life.
I can say that this software is a drushti, like it is a true vision for us. I must thank all developers of this software. I must congratulate them for taking this step to make our lives meaningful and fulfilled.
Thank you. I need to close this presentation. I just wanted to say that each of us as companies, depending on the type of job we are providing, can make an impact. So for us, being a digital company, it has been this one. It could be others for other companies. So, and again, I really feel it's a beginning of huge opportunities for everyone. And I'm hoping all of us will find a way to make an impact, whether it is your own applications, innovation, or anything. So thanks for your attention.
I was noted that I forgot to mention there's going to be an online poll that's going to be open. Is it open the whole time, Stefan, or is it at particular points? Sorry.
Yeah, we're basically checking, we're trying, in order to not to make you fall asleep during the meeting, we check whether you will be invited, you are being invited to take part in a Slido poll, which Felipe will now put on the screen. And basically you have 3 questions during the day, two during this session and 1 during the afternoon session. The first question, if possible, you should answer between now and 11:30. And the other question will come up after 11:30. Felipe, can you show on the screen the Slido question? And you also have in your files, you have the instructions of how to connect with that poll. If you don't manage, I mean, don't worry, you won't be thrown out of the network because of that, but if you can take part in the Slido, that would be nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for forgetting to mention that. So let's continue with the presentations, just so we give everybody the time. So Yves is the program manager with Global Disability and Inclusion at IBM. So, sorry.
All right, thank you, Adam. Basically, IBM's disability inclusion strategy is built around 3 pillars, which we call internally the 3 A's, standing for accessibility, attitude, and accommodation. Basically, I'm going to speak more today, obviously, about accessibility. When we speak about accessibility, as Cécile said, we're not only talking about building or physical accessibility or workplace accessibility, but also digital accessibility. So what it means concretely is that we do our best to make sure that our applications that we develop and deploy internally are accessible or compatible with the assistive technologies that our employees use. And it's going beyond making sure that our HR applications or web applications are accessible, but also that includes caption or sign language interpreters. So it's really about making sure that all our employees have equal access to information. And I would take this message one step further. When we speak about digital accessibility, the business case is obvious. You can engage not only your employees but also your clients around digital accessibility. Especially nowadays, we are at a crossroads. There are, in addition to the billion of people with disabilities worldwide, there are also people living with literacy or language challenges, and making your products accessible, digitally accessible to your clients will broaden your market. And so it makes not only from a human perspective or diversity perspective, business sense, but it makes also a pure business sense to make your solutions, both internally and externally, digitally accessible. And one example that I would like to highlight today is mobile. More and more applications that we sell to our clients are developed not only on the web, but also for to be used mobile by your smartphone, etc. And recently, IBM collaborated with the University of West Virginia in the US to develop an application called MAS, which is Mobile Accessible Accommodation Solution. This tool is really a key element to support the inclusion of your employees with disabilities. Basically, what it does is that every time an employee requires an accommodation, they can download this app on their smartphone. They will use that app. For the moment, it's being developed for both platform, iOS and Android platforms. And basically, they go to this application. They fill out a form where they mention all their needs, and this app, form will be sent automatically to the information system of your organization. And so these, the idea is really to mainstream the requirement of accommodation provision to your employees. Basically, right now in many organizations, it's still manual. You have a spreadsheet, you handle all your requests for accommodations using a very manual process. And this tool is really helping because it mainstreams the whole accommodation provision to your employees. And so basically, whether you're an employee, a manager, a recruiter, you can use this app very, very easily, and everything will be centralized in one single information system that will benefit the entire organization. So not only the employee, but also your recruitment teams, your procurement team, finance will have a clear view on the volume of requests that are issued, the type of requests that are issued. So basically, the principle is quite simple. There are forms. IBM worked with an organization in the US called JAN, standing for Job Accessible Network. Thank you, Susan. I recognize your expertise here. And so basically what they did is that they worked with IBM and the university to provide us with a form, a list of forms that are applicable and that make easy for any employee to clearly state their request. And it's really a major step in the digital accessibility. It's going beyond making sure that we speak about compatibility. It's really trying to find a way to engage your employees, your clients, your organizations around digital accessibility by showing that it is simple, it's efficient, and it really adds value to all our stakeholders in the organization. And so I will make it short, I promise. I will share with you via LinkedIn the beautiful ILO website, all the links when it's available. The iOS version will be available by 2017, the end of this year, and the Android version will be available in 2018. And so I'll make sure that I share this with you because it's a free app. Yes, sometimes things are for free. And I'll make sure that you get it, and I'll strongly encourage you to use this because it's going to make your life much easier when it comes to making sure that all your employees receive the accommodations they need in a timely manner. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. I'm sure there are going to be some questions on that as well. So let's move to Lucy Ruck, who's the Technology Taskforce Manager at the Business Disability Forum. Do you have a presentation?
I do have a presentation, yeah. If we could put that on screen, that would be really helpful. Thank you. Hello, everybody. So I'm Lucy Ruck from the Business Disability Forum, and I'm the Technology Taskforce Manager. It says it on screen. It's quite obvious, and I've also got a lovely display here as well. If we can have the next slide, please. So, Business Disability Forum, or BDF, some of you may already heard of us. We're based out of London in the UK. We've been around for over 25 years now. And what we're about is we make it easier and more rewarding to do business with and to employ disabled people. And we're a non-for-profit with charitable status, funded entirely by our members, over 300 members of BDF in the UK, some of those global organisations, some UK-based organisations. Next slide, please. So I run the Technology Taskforce, which has been around for about 9 years now. And what we do is we focus purely on technology and looking at how we can even the playing field. Technology has become so integral in what we do these days. No one can do anything without having an iPhone or an Android phone attached to them, apparently. And it's a real enabler for people with disabilities. But what we've also found is actually quite often it can be the barrier, which is why the task force came about. So we've got a nice bit of blurb there on screen about the task force is a group of individuals from leading UK and global organisations working together to improve the use of inclusive design and accessible technology. As part of this group, we provide tools, best practice, networking opportunities and technology industry influence to help organisations to create and deploy more accessible technology. We've come up with this sort of phrasing recently, and I think it kind of sums up quite nicely what we do. I thought I'd share that. So the first thing I wanted to share with you, and I realise I'm not actually giving you the business case for why you want to make stuff accessible, but I'm kind of thinking by being here, you get the gist of why you'd want to make tech accessible. So what I want to do is talk you through a couple of tools that we've got available that will actually help you to implement that and help you to go on to the next stages and work out how you do accessibility. So the first is an accessible technology charter. Apparently everyone has charters these days. And this is about making that public commitment to making your technology accessible. And within that, we've got 10 different areas, which again are on screen. So we've got things like having an executive champion. I think we've already talked about today, having that senior sponsorship and how important that is to enable you to do things. We realise also that IT doesn't just work in one particular area, so you need to have a lot of connections within your own organisation, into your procurement, your supply partners, again, we've spoken about today already. We've got adjustments in there, again, we just talked about that, or accommodations. That's really important that you're considering that. But as I say, this is a commitment on how you embed accessibility within your organisation, and we encourage people to sign up to it. And across this panel, we've got Accenture have signed up to this already, Atos and Barclays, along with about 45 other organisations have already made that public commitment. Underpinning that, we have an accessibility maturity model. And if you think of the charter of this is signing up and making the commitment, the maturity model is very much around how do you actually work out where you are and how you're doing against accessibility. So it's designed to kind of give you the guidance of what good looks like. It's designed to be quite simple to use. It should work for a range of organisations. So part of this, we did a review of it a year ago. Barclays, Atos, KPMG, some other banks, some government departments were involved in reshaping it and making sure it would work for a number of different organisations across multiple fields. I haven't had anyone tell me yet it didn't work for their organisation, so I'm hoping that's a good sign. And it's helping organisations to identify what they need to do and how they prioritise. Now, this is a really inaccessible slide, so I'm going to apologise straight away for that, and I'm not expecting you to be able to read it. But what I wanted to do is to show you the grid formation on it. So down the left-hand side, you've got those charter points, the first 5, and the next 5 will be on the next slide. And they are the points we covered earlier on. So first, you've got your exec level sponsor. If we then look across the top, we've got 5 levels. Again, going from left to right. I'm trying to do this in reverse because you're opposite to me. We've got level 1 being quite basic and starting off, and level 5 is optimized, which is really best practice. And what we find is when people first start off with doing this, they're level 1. And as they evolve and move on, they gradually work their way through using the bullet points that are really inaccessible and you can't read to kind of guide them on the things they need to do to get to the next level. Across the Technology Task Force, our average is pretty much down the middle. It was about 2.4, sort of down the middle of all of these. And these are organisations that have been doing this for quite a few years. So I just wanted to give you a feel for that. So if you do go away and complete this, and again, this is free, anyone can download this from the BDF website, we like a freebie, then don't expect to come up with 5s, because actually, realistically, that's not very likely. If you do, brilliant, that's fantastic, please tell us about that. But don't beat yourself up if you're not doing quite so well. These cover all the different areas of the Charter. We often say they're not in a particular order in terms of do this one, then that one, then that one, then that one. But what we do find is things like having that executive level champion will make it a lot easier to then go on and do the other things. So although they're not in a kind of an order, sometimes it can be helpful. Next slide, please. This is so it's the second half of the Charter points and how it goes. So next one, please. To underpin this, rather than just going, oh, there's a chart, you can self-score yourself and work out where you are, we've also produced a number of bits of guidance and best practice, again, freely available on the BDF website. And we've got, at the moment, we've got 23 best practice guides and 15 case studies. And these are written by some of my colleagues on the panel here with me today, along with our other partners at BDF. And they were described to me as, what do I wish I'd have known when I started off doing this accessibility stuff by a colleague of ours quite a few years ago. And I think it sums it up really nicely, because it's trying to learn from other people and what they've done and stop us from reinventing the wheel. So members of the Technology Taskforce sit there, create these guides. They can be 2 or 3 pages, some are longer, but we try and keep them quite brief and quite useful information for you. And I've just given you a feel for some of the things we've got on there. So we talked about procurement. We've got some bullet points and information you could copy and paste into your request for proposals around accessibility that we would encourage you to do. There's some guidance around how to use the maturity model so that you can self-help, so you can manage that yourself. Things about what you might expect to have in an assistive technology catalogue, and many other things in there as well. And if you want further information, please come and see me or look on our website and look at our growing resources. So, how to make accessibility easier? I think it sounds like it should be quite easy, but I think in reality, those of you who've tried to do it know it's not quite as easy as that. I think by committing from a senior level, that will really make things an awful lot easier within your organisation. And signing up to the Charter can often be that impetus for organisations to then get that commitment, to then be able to do stuff. Until you assess where you are, how do you know where you need to improve? And that's where the maturity model really comes into its own. It will really help you work out where you're working, where your strengths are, and maybe the areas you maybe need to focus on. The other thing I tend to say is accessibility doesn't tend to happen by mistake. It won't just have happened. People don't design stuff to be inaccessible, but you do need to think about it to make your stuff accessible. The tools are there, you just need to use it. You know, you've got a panel of experts here who are sharing quite a lot of useful information with you. So we've got a number of resources on the technology part of the BDF website, so please take full advantage and exploit and download and use all of those. And do it one step at a time. Don't expect to do everything all in one go. It's a bit like how do you boil the ocean or eat an elephant, any of those analogies. The same thing goes. You just need to start one step at a time and make your way forward with that one. And that's it. But we're doing questions afterwards, but thank you.
Yes. Great. I have to say I haven't heard the eat an elephant one before. Boil an ocean, yes. But thank you, Lucy. Now we're going to go to Neil Milliken, who's the head of accessibility and digital inclusion at Atos.
Thank you. I have some slides as well.
Okay. And they're coming up.
Neil, let me just, I'm Stefan here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just
no,
one reminder about the Slido thing. So the second question of your Slido, if you just need to put in your iPhone Slido, sli.do, and a poll will come up. Now the second poll, it will ask you for a code. It's 3194, and there are 4 questions, I think. You can answer up to 2 of them. And with that, we have a mini survey being done during this session. Sorry, Adam, to interrupt you.
Okay. Can we have the slides back up? Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. So a minor miracle has happened. I actually read the brief, and being dyslexic, I don't read stuff particularly well. So I'm very glad to be with you today. I'm Head of Accessibility and Digital Inclusion for Atos. I'm also the Global Lead for Disability for our staff networks as well. So if we can move on the slides, please. I can't actually see them.
They need to come up over
Yeah.
there.
Aha, superb. So I think that accessibility is actually a business imperative, and I'm going to run through some stuff that hopefully will, if you're not already convinced, which you should be because you're here, will help you argue the case. So next slide, please. So this is the World Health Organization's figure. It's 1 billion. It's a very large figure, and this is the estimate of people around the globe who are living with a disability. I think we also need to be cognizant of the fact that Western workforces are aging and people are working longer. And this is something that really affects us as employers and as suppliers of IT and services to people and organizations that also employ lots and lots of people. So whilst there are laws, there are good business drivers as well. Next slide, please. I'll let this one speak for itself, but this really shows you quite nicely why we need to be taking accessibility seriously. This is actually the median ages of populations over a 100-year period. And what you can see is that populations are aging rapidly. And with age comes disability. As we get older, we start to function less well than we did when we were young and in our prime. And as a result of which, the likelihood is that the global population of people with disabilities is going to grow tremendously. And therefore, we're all going to be in jobs for quite some time to come. Next slide, please. In fact, in 1960, there were on average 3 young people for every elderly person. And by 2060, a century later, there may be more than 2 elderly people for each young person. So none of us are getting any younger, and we need to find ways of being able to ensure that people are able to stay productive and healthy and able to contribute and look after themselves to a large extent, because there won't be people in place to be able to do it for them. So again, that's another significant driver. Next slide, please. Okay, so some of the things that have a resonance within our own organization. So obviously it's the right thing to do, but people with disabilities are customers, they're colleagues, their friends and family, and up to 20% will benefit directly from improving our accessibility. More importantly, there are indirect benefits. So if we start looking at things like situational disabilities, so being temporarily unable to do something, maybe because you're carrying something, maybe because you're driving, then accessibility really benefits far more people. So we're thinking of the most obvious physical example, you'd have the dropped curb, which was designed to enable wheelchair access, but it also makes it easier for delivery drivers and for mothers pushing prams, etc. Of course, accessibility is well aligned with our corporate social responsibility strategies, and we have a Wellbeing at Work program within Atos, which is employee-led, and the disability networks sit within that. Our network is called ADAPT because we are, as people with disabilities, and I have a hidden disability, having to adapt to be able to do well in our workplace, but we're also causing our organization to adapt and change. So accessibility also aids our overall productivity and efficiency. I use speech recognition. I can knock out emails faster than my speed typing colleagues. Yes, it's a legal obligation, but and that's around the globe. There are lots of different laws, but actually there are plenty of other business drivers. And one of the obvious ones is that it's a huge market. There is a global market estimated to be worth about $1.3 trillion. So that's worth pursuing. Next slide, please. So how do we approach it? Next slide. Well, we believe that inclusion is everyone's business and that it's good for business. A lot of companies that we work with really want to be inclusive but often get stuck and don't really know where to begin, and so we want to simplify this, and through working with people like Lucy and BDF, we use things like the maturity model to take some of the pain out of that, and of course we provide a bunch of services and so on around that. Next slide, please. Well, we're defining accessibility effectively as equality of access, regardless of disability, jobs, products, service, and information. And in the IT world, that's making IT work with assistive technology such as screen readers, magnifiers, speech recognition systems, etc. But it's also about making reasonable changes to access to buildings and the working environment, and also the way that we work, because often if you're on the autistic spectrum or you're dyslexic like me, small changes to how we work are almost as important to as addressing the things with the IT systems that we work with. So it helps to give greater independence, it enables people to achieve things that weren't able to do before, but it makes things that were formerly impossible for some people possible for them, but better for everyone. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I've seen quite a lot in a large IT company is that there are two separate sections, one doing user experience, one doing accessibility. We bring them together, and that's really important because we want to create user experiences that are inclusive. Next slide, please. So this is my day job. So we provide managed services to a lot of our clients. So we help deliver some of the accessibility for large organizations with hundreds of thousands of employees, and we deliver accessibility on their behalf to their employees. And there are various different areas to that. Some of it is governance and checking that everything works. Some of it is providing the assistive tech. Some of it may be doing things like JAWS scripting or providing training, etc. And then the obvious, you need to support all of that and the wrapper around it. Next slide, please. So I think it was last year, Forrester did a large study. It's worth looking at. It gives a really good indication of the business case. Microsoft sponsors this about once a decade. If you want to take an analyst-based study to your management, because it's quite obvious that management like analyst-based studies, they always like to buy into what the big analyst houses are saying, this would be a good one to take. Next slide, please. I think we've talked about top-down commitment and why it's important. Well, this is our UK and I CEO, Adrian, trying out some of the simulation gloves that simulate reduced movement. And he was trying this in the public area of our head office. What you can't see in the picture is the fact that lots of people were really curious as to why our CEO was wearing these instruments of torture. And that really generated conversations. And the fact that he was leading by example meant that people were actually engaged and felt that it was okay to start having conversations about these topics. And I think we're pretty much at the end of my slides. Just check, see if we've got any Easter eggs. Last one. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Neil. And we're doing fantastic on time, so there'll still be plenty of time for questions. Finally, David Caldwell is the Digital Accessibility Manager at Barclays. David.
Thank you. So my name's David Caldwell. I'm one of a team of digital accessibility managers at Barclays. And for those of you who aren't aware who Barclays are, we're a international consumer corporate and investment bank, primarily based in the UK and in the US, and less so in Europe in recent years. But we've got a big ambition around accessibility, and we want to become the most accessible and inclusive company in the FTSE 100. Maybe please know I don't have any slides today, but I do have a video which I'll show you shortly. But what I found interesting from today's session so far is the focus on the business case and how it's been focused on the things that Neil talked about, the legal, the commercial, and the social responsibility elements. And those are all the right things to focus on. But at Barclays, we focus very significantly on the commercial benefits that come from delivering accessible products and services. Fundamentally, and it might sound a little obscure, but fundamentally we're an organisation that has to drive profits and has to drive a commercial benefit for our shareholders and for the people who fund us and who want us to do well. And that sometimes is at odds with the societal benefits that we also want to see, because sometimes it doesn't make commercial sense to do things. But accessibility isn't one of those things. Accessibility makes commercial sense. And the more that we focus on the commercial element and the commercial drivers for accessibility, the higher the likelihood is that we will achieve a more accessible world, particularly in the private sector. But there's a challenge, and the challenge isn't any of the people sitting in the room today because you're all here because you get it. The challenge for digital accessibility is technologists. Fundamentally, technologists do not understand accessibility. They don't get it. They don't understand why. And the business case for accessibility doesn't work for them. Because fundamentally, they're there to achieve a goal that they have been set by somebody up on high. Fundamentally, they are there to drive a business deliverable. And if the person asking them to deliver that hasn't thought about accessibility and doesn't demand accessibility, then it won't happen. And so there needs to be a cultural change. We need to refocus accessibility, not just on the 1 billion people around the world with a disability, but on the fact that accessible products and services are just great experiences for everybody. So Neil talked about situational impairments and those times when actually we all benefit from accessibility. So like many of you, I've been sitting and watching the subtitles that are on screen. Like many of you, I have been in public environments where I need subtitles because I haven't got headphones. And how many of us often walk down the street whilst watching videos or checking our bank balances? All of those things have a requirement for accessible products and services. And so if we focus the attention on how we create broadly accessible, broadly inclusive products and services, I believe, and Barclays believes, that accessibility will be there for everybody who needs it. Can I show the video clip now, if that's okay? So one of the things that we wanted to do as part of the work we've been doing to drive cultural change is to reframe accessibility for our colleagues and reframe it away from just those legal elements into a broader conversation about accessibility.
Ever tried to access mobile banking on a bouncy train? Or found yourself needing to play a video in a crowded office? Then chances are your experience was influenced by whether the digital features you were using were built with accessibility in mind. Accessibility is often associated with getting it right for people with disabilities, and that's vital, not least because of the number of people we might otherwise exclude. On average, 1 in 5 people have a disability or impairment. The purple pound, the annual disposable income of disabled people, is $1 trillion globally. But by designing for difference, we also factor in situational or temporary impairments which can inhibit anyone's ability to interact with digital services. The World Health Organization's definition of disability is a mismatch in interaction between the features of a person's body and the features of the environment in which they live. The great thing about us humans is we're all different. So how we interact with technology will be different too, whether we have a disability or not. That's why at Barclays, accessibility means ensuring that everyone can use our products and services or be employed by us. It's that simple. It's our ambition to be the most inclusive and accessible company in the FTSE 100. Great ambition, but surely what we offer is already easy for people to use. Well, that depends on your perspective. By designing based on our own abilities and perspectives, we create digital solutions that work for some, but unintentionally exclude others. User feedback shows our services can be frustrating or just not usable. By keeping a range of abilities and preferences in mind from concept to test, we can create a better product and experience for all. We did that for Pingit and Barclays Mobile Banking, and both achieved kite marks for accessibility. This shows what we can do when we really design with difference in mind. Okay, I get it, but where do I start? How can we make this accessible? How would you navigate screens if you had a visual impairment or in bright sunlight? How would you use a touchscreen slider if you had a dexterity impairment, or if you were an active parent juggling a baby in one hand and phone in another? Got it. So now what? Thinking about accessibility early saves time, energy and money and leads to better user satisfaction. Any resources I can use? Loads. Use the PAW principles and other practical tools available. But the best resource available to all of us is being curious about difference and sharing a collective goal that all our digital services will be accessible. Accessibility. Make it your mantra.
I have to say it's slightly disconcerting watching a video, knowing that you can hear it, but not really hearing it. Fundamentally, accessibility is a human right, but it's a human right for all of us, not just people with disabilities. And so it's really important that we change the conversation about accessibility to not just be about people with disabilities, because if we continue that conversation in that direction, we'll never get there. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I think before we see the results from the poll, I think we had one comment from the floor from Roxanne at ITU.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and speakers, I first of all would like to thank you very, very much for actually promoting with everything you said the work that we are doing in ITU, International Telecommunication Union, where the UN agency that are in charge with information communication technologies. What I want to share is that for me it's really a comfort zone, this meeting, because usually I'm asked to pledge and convince the audience on the need to use the information and communication technology to facilitate persons with disabilities inclusion in information society and, as we call now, digital society. And I think we are all convinced here that there is a need, and only working together we can make it. What I would like only to share with you that if you Google in our website, it's ITU Digital Inclusion and Resources. I just want to share with you some of very valuable resources that we share with our members. Actually, we have over 1,000 members. We have 193 members, which are ministries of telecommunication and regulatory bodies from everywhere in the world. We have over 100 academic members and over 750 sector members from telecom. So one of the key reports that we are doing, so when I say report, it's actually guidelines and tools that we share with all our members. It's a model ICT accessibility policy report. It's this one. You find it freely available online in the 6 UN languages. And actually, this is a tool for national policymakers and regulatory to create their own ICT accessibility policy frameworks, but also serves a lot for all the stakeholders to go to government and say, hey, these are the guidelines, everything is in line with the CRPD, let's work together to implement this. We also develop reports in making TV accessible, making TV accessible. We also develop trainings. Recently, we developed a national policy, Internet for All, also available already in 5 UN languages. And just to let you know that last Friday, we held the World Telecommunication Development Conference in Buenos Aires, and there our member states already plan, let's say, the targets and the priorities for the next 4 years to come, and they try to commit that public website will be accessible for persons with disability in the near future. So based on this, we already have the necessary training. So please promote all this. Please contact me. I will be very happy to work to each of you. I already asked for all your presentation because actually we also use it. And just a very, very small, let's say, additional data that I want to share with you in complement to what the gentleman from Atos just said. Yes, indeed, so we talk about 1 billion people that live with a sort of disability. We also talk that by 2050, more than 1.5 billion people will have over 60 years, so it will be age-related disability. But I don't want to bring a drama here, but just to share with you that we in ITU also work with our colleagues in WHO, because we have over 1 billion youths in risk of hearing impairment due to unsafe listening devices. So what I want to say is that currently our children are in risk of hearing impairment because all the devices that you are using right now, including your iPhones, do not have a standard that indicate to you that if you listen to more than X decibel, you risk to lose your hearing. So we are really working very close with them, but if we just make a little bit of math and add all these figures, it's quite sad, because we can even talk about over half of the world population in future will or can be affected and can't live with a sort of disability. So all this to say, please contact us, please let us to work with you to promote this, and thank you very, very much for already pledging so wonderful the need of using the information and communication technology for facilitating person with disabilities inclusiveness. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think now we're going to have an overview of the poll, but but also start thinking about your questions for the panel or for discussion.
Yes. Hello, everyone. So let me pull the results here. So for the first question, what would help your company or organization most likely to increase its digital accessibility? 18 people participated. Thank you very much to everybody who did. So 50% of you think that additional technical expertise is the first priority, followed by company, organizational. And sorry, this moved. So let me go back to the first one. So additional technical, well, actually changed. So now this is real time. Thank you for participating. So company organization-wide policy on accessibility is now the first one with 50%, followed by additional technical expertise. Third comes exchange with other companies or organizations on the topic, followed by more evidence on the business case for digital accessibility. And now let me show the second question. So to the question of, for this question, 20 people have participated. So for your company organization, so far, we have mainly focused on the digital accessibility of, and 65% of you said products and services, including websites and apps, followed by internal ICT, systems and processes, 50%. And then the last one at 20% is online platforms for recruitment of new staff. So thank you very much for participating, and we will be doing throughout the day. Thank you.
Oh, that's interesting. It sort of shows the focus on new markets, and apparently everyone understands the business case, because that's not the priority. I mean, the three areas that really stand out, which aren't surprising in terms of the business case, are attracting and retaining talent, improving internal productivity and efficiency, and then new products and reaching new markets. But it's interesting that it seems to be flowing very quickly into the new markets and services. So any initial questions from the floor, from one of the panelists to anybody else? Yes, sir, in the back.
Hi, my name is Erich Kofmehl. I'm from Autistic Minority International. I had two remarks or questions. The first one in general, with regard to digital accessibility, especially of websites. I'm wondering if you could give some best practice examples from your experience with regard to accessibility for people with intellectual or cognitive disabilities, impairments. And the second one, specifically to Accenture with regard to Drishti. We all laughed when we saw this video where the program recognized the facial expression of people and said they were smiling. And I'm wondering if you have you thought about this also being applicable to autistic people, not just to blind people, because many of us autistic people, we struggle with facial recognition, so we don't actually know what people's faces express. And I'm wondering how differentiated this software already is, if you actually can detect other expressions other than smiling, and which they would be, and if you have thought about making this accessible to people on the autistic spectrum.
Okay, so I will take the one on the video. So I would say you are totally right. Regarding the autistic people, there is definitely another way to look at to leverage artificial intelligence. So when we have built this application, that's not we had I would say a broader perspective in mind, knowing that it's going to take a long time before it works for everyone. So because there are so many categories of people. But to your point, the next stage of our innovation program is to work on leveraging artificial intelligence for people with autism. So we have not developed yet, but that's the next step. It happens that one of the people leading the Innovation Labs has a son who is autistic, and we all know that sometimes when the people who are driving these innovations also have a personal, I would say, association with the topic, it works even better. So we are very hopeful that in conjunction with the program we are running now to hire people with autism in some countries, we need to develop these applications. A lot of programs already exist. I have seen that in the education to help the child with autism using virtual reality also. So yes, that's definitely the next step. That's not included in there. I also had a lot of thoughts about also cross-cultural communication, for example. So the cues on the facial cues are not the same depending on where you live in Asia versus Europe. So there are plenty of things we could do. But I think that's the intent of artificial intelligence, to start somewhere and learn as we practice. But thanks for that, because it's really probably one area unexplored.
I will answer the second part of your question regarding language and communication skills of people on the spectrum. Actually, IBM leveraged our artificial intelligence robot, which is called Watson, to create what we call a language simplifier, which basically, as you know, clearly highlights the key components of a message, so that, for people who have difficulty, challenges, understanding the key concept included in a very long text. It's going beyond, by the way, people on the spectrum. It's really useful for a lot of people, especially when you're challenged in a specific language. You're not totally fluent in, which could be very useful. And so this language simplifier tool is now available for free by the accessibility team in the research team in IBM. And it's quite useful. It's been tested by people on the spectrum internally. And it's, the feedback we got from our employees on the spectrum was quite positive. So again, I'll share the link to this material on the ILO LinkedIn website.
So one of your first questions was about cognitive accessibility on the web. I'm part of the W3C's Cognitive Accessibility Taskforce, and there is work going on, and there is a refresh to the web content accessibility guidelines that is being worked on right now. It's called WCAG 2.1, imaginatively. And there are a number of new success criteria for cognitive accessibility as part of that. However, it's not going to address everything. And we, as the task force are well aware, a lot of the things that people with cognitive disabilities want are significantly different and at odds with some of the other accessibility needs of other disability groups. So one of the key things that we're looking for and to progress is to enable users to have the option to personalize. And so a lot of the work that is going on is looking at how you can enable personalization for people without breaking the web currently, and it's ongoing. There's still a lot of work to do. Second thing, in terms of looking at virtual reality and artificial intelligence, we're again, like other IT companies exploring this, we're working and collaborating with the BBC on a lot of these projects, and one of the things we're looking at right now is using neural feedback and brainwaves to create a feedback loop within a virtual reality experience so that you can really experience the overstimulation and then actually see how that is affecting you emotionally and physically as well. So you get to be able to empathize significantly with people on the autistic spectrum. Finally, the facial recognition stuff, again, as our colleague from Accenture said, there are cultural differences that need to be explored to make sure that you're not misinterpreting those clues. But I have seen an English language European version of some software already doing some of this. I need to go and find it for you, but I hopefully should be able to do that later on today.
Any other examples of website accessibility on the web that anybody wants to share? No. Okay. So any other questions for the panel? Yes. Oh.
Just from working perspective, I would also like to promote your work to our members. So could you please let me know, and I'm addressing in particular to the lady from Cécile Rochet from Accenture, if the software is also available in other languages, and the Drishti. Okay. Are you planning on?
No, yes, we will plan to have other versions. For now, obviously, English is the first version we have tested. So we are testing some ideas. We are going to try to test on our people and have internal employees telling us if it works, what need to improve, and then we will go to the next steps in terms of language. For sure, we know that there are some markets that we cannot do without having another language than English. So that's planned, but I don't have a committed date for now. Yeah. I just wanted to add one thing in terms of what I think is fascinating with this accessibility. It's not going to put people in boxes anymore, because I think we need to talk about the way you want to interact with the technologies versus what is your disability, and all of us can find something working for us. So I prefer to talk, I prefer to write. So it's the focus on the need versus on who you are, and that could be a revolution in how we are not forcing people to disclose even a disability before accessing a tool. So it's another way to look at disability.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Susan Scott Parker, and while I'm obsessed with technology, as we all are, often we get accessible technology and then HR step in and stop it from working, or another piece of another department, if you like, gets involved, and somehow the processes don't work. Can you give examples of where the sort of the step to step to step, how does the technology expert on accessibility influence the other departments so that they don't flip off switches, is the code, I think. I was looking particularly at online recruitment recently, and I think the technology may be accessible, but HR have put in so many obstacles for so many people that someone on the spectrum took 4.5 hours and wasn't able to get to the application form. And so the form may be accessible, but somehow it's the way the technology is deployed that is as important as the technology itself. So if you've got any examples, Neil, David, of where you've got the end-to-end process working?
Yeah. Okay. So I think there is. It's quite difficult to maintain a working end-to-end process. We work in dynamic matrix organizations where it's a moving feast. So IT systems are never static, personnel systems are never static, policies are never static. So really, one of the key things to enable this is stakeholder management. You need to understand who the key people are and keep on top of that. And it's a question of maintaining dialogue with these people to make sure that that this is something that is discussed up front. So a lot of the groundwork of making stuff accessible is not about the technology, it's about the teeth-pullingly dull meetings that you have to sit through to actually be there for the 5 minutes where you actually have to remind people that this is something that they need to do. So we do spend an awful lot of time in meetings, but it pays off because then you're not having the unpleasant meeting at the end of the process where you're telling someone that their product doesn't work or can't go live. So it really is important to get in there up front and understand and manage your stakeholders.
You know, I would agree with Neil. I think it's part of how the future of digital accessibility is moving, where we move away from pure digital expertise experts, where you've got people who are checklist experts, to people who are much more hybrid, who are much more focused on actually the business realities and being part of those conversations and those relationships. I think there's also something in there about helping. You've used HR professionals. It goes a bit broad on that, but we'll stick with HR professionals, helping them to understand why it's important, but also the talent gap that organisations are missing out on. I will give you an anecdote. I was in the lifts in our building on Friday, and I met with talking to a colleague who works in our cyber security area. She can appreciate cyber security for a bank's a little important. But she was saying, we had this recruitment day, we ran some war games. The number of people who were on the spectrum was amazing, we never thought about it. We need to talk to HR. It's like, come and talk to us first before you go and talk to HR, because actually we'll tell you what you really need to do and HR will tell you the process.
I had one question, and I'm not sure who might want to address it, but in terms of the market, sort of new markets for digitally accessible products or services, if the trend is more towards integrated accessibility and designing it in from the beginning versus separate products or services, does it become a market in itself, or is it just become part of products and services more generally? I mean, it's sort of, if it's not a single product category or market category, and it's and the trend is towards integration, which makes a lot of sense, does it then just become integrated for everything, and it's not truly sort of a standalone market?
Well, I think that we can compare the digital accessibility approach with the physical accessibility. Originally, we tried to make the buildings accessible, and now when you build new buildings, most of them, at least in many countries, become accessible by default, because we don't have to start it from scratch. You know, it's done, right? And so I think that it might be useful to take the same approach for digital accessibility as well, and to stop talking about accessibility for this or that, as you said, this or that segment of the population, but making sure that digital accessibility becomes universal, and digital accessibility for all. For instance, IBM developed a tool that provides real-time caption in several languages, leveraging our artificial intelligence. It's going beyond providing assistance for the deaf and hard of hearing. Let's talk about people who work in a noisy environment. They will also benefit from this kind of accessible technology. People who are not fluent in a given language will also benefit from this. So why always linking disability with accessibility? Accessibility for all. Stop talking about disability.
I think it's also similar to security today. So that's the analogy we are making today when some people do some pushback. Say, okay, would you, when you work with a vendor, so say, okay, accessibility should not be the priority the top thing we are looking when we are choosing a vendor. We say, okay, when you are buying a product, would you say, well, security, not sure it should be a priority. It is a priority. It should be in your 10 things you are to help you to decide which is a good vendor. So that's exactly that. It's not something in addition to the rest.
I'd say that the journey that we are on is analogous to the journey that information security went on 10 years ago, and that we had a habit of coming in at the end of projects, causing problems for the project, making them late, adding cost, etc., and that over time that we are getting earlier and earlier in the projects, and that we are becoming integrated, and it is seen as something that is part of a business as usual process rather than something that is an exception. So we are following that same path, albeit probably a decade behind the information security industry, but I think that we will get there.
I think actually what's really interesting as well is the number of sort of more mainstream innovations, if you will, that have an accessibility benefit almost by accident. So, for example, Amazon Alexa and other voice personal assistants have huge benefits for certain groupings of people with disabilities, and a lot of companies, Barclays amongst them, are trying to find ways of adopting that technology, but by being able to show, well, actually, look, there's an accessibility benefit here too, and actually adding that into the mix helps people to go, well, actually, if that helps, what else can we do? What else can we mainstream? What else can we put into our services that will help? Fundamentally, it's also cost saving, right? If we build it in, we don't have to maintain a separate route.
I was also just going to add that what we're finding now is a lot of people are weighting their procurement systems to make sure that accessibility gets a higher sort of importance when they're going through that procurement. So rather than saying it's actually only 3% because there's only a few questions around it, actually we're giving it a 15% weighting on it to really make sure that it's being boosted up on that. And the other one that we have some of our partners are doing is that they're saying, if you're not making sure that your suppliers are accessible, we won't buy services from you. We just will not interact with you. And I think as all people who purchase systems or different things, you've got a real important part to play in this. And I think, really don't underestimate that.
I'll just come back on that. Our training materials are particularly important as a multinational company, particularly ones around language. And we were in a procurement exercise, and we went out to the two companies that had been down selected, and we asked them about accessibility. One said, "Why should we care?" And the other one got the contract.
Just in compliment with everybody mentioned, I just want to let you know that actually in ITU, when we are talking about accessible ICT, we are talking about the universal design. So we really want to encourage our industry sector members to embed from the very beginning all accessibility features in their products and, of course, services. And, of course, there are still questions, what about assistive technologies? Yes, for us, the assistive technologies are in complement to these accessible ICTs, and we consider that we will still need those for more severe type of disabilities. And just to complement to the procurement, so the module 6 of this report really actually highlight how important it is to include these procurement features and condition in accessibility actually at government level, because as we all know, the governments are one of the biggest buyers in the world. So it's very important to include this in the procurement services. And of course, if this can be done at any level, this will finally arrive to everything, what everybody is actually seeking at, to have accessible ICTs in everything. So you want to use it or you don't want to use it, this is up to everybody, but to have it embedded in all equipment that is available, so all digital equipment. Thank you.
And one of the things we found is actually procurement is one of the main areas where it's actually failing. So I think we kind of really need to get like procurement buddies or something, or really like be quite nice and friendly to our procurement teams, because this seems to be a real area. I think of all our 10 areas within our charter, this is the one area that is failing. And we held a conference on it earlier on this year, and we were struggling to find people who were really doing great stuff in this area. So, yeah, we'll reach out. But I think, you know, I think for us to take away, that's probably one area, if we can do more around procurement, that's going to have a huge impact in the future, because that's the stuff that's coming on board now rather than retrofitting.
One last thing on procurement is actually often the problem is not the procurement professionals. The issue is the fact that the decision-making process happens elsewhere within the organisation. So the procurement professionals are buying something that they've been told to buy, and then they're really looking about price and everything else. So you need to understand who in the organisation is responsible for taking the decision about which system they are buying, and then talk with the procurement professionals. They can be your ally, because they can go back to the people that are buying and say, you need to consider accessibility.
Totally echo that. For us, in the steering committee we have built, the two of them work together, so it has been like an interesting, I would say, experience to see who was owning what. But at the end, they work together. They have specific roles, and yeah. So I think it's about recognizing that who has the power to buy, and also being realistic about if the vendor is not totally compliant, we are not going to work with them. I think it doesn't work with the business owner today. So the reality, it's going to take some time before everyone is compliant. So it's about opening a discussion. So having a question in an RFP is not going to solve everything, but that's the beginning of something. So we are asking all the business owners and the procurement to at least ask the vendors, okay, today you are not totally compliant, but what is your roadmap? Let's talk together. So it's about really being realistic, because we started to say, okay, no, let's do not do business with them. Okay, this is a vendor who is doing like half of our business. How we do it? so I think that's an important point.
Yeah, sorry, just I think we've talked a lot about buying systems. As an organisation who buys development resources quite a lot, we're seeing an increased need to start to challenge those types of buying conversations as well. So are you procuring people services where the people know what they're doing from an accessibility perspective, so that fundamentally we don't believe we should train other people's people to deliver services to us? They should, you know, a developer coming from a managed services company should know how to develop in an accessible way, for example. So that, I think that's an interesting challenge that I don't think is being talked about as much as the buying of services, which has its own challenges.
Any other questions from the floor? Yes, again.
I just wanted to add to that. Our Global Procurement Task Force has been looking at what questions they should be asking their internal customers, as well as the questions they should be asking their suppliers. And I think to get that in a more structured way, where every time they're asked by an internal customer to go out and purchase something, they say, have you checked on the impact? You know, have you looked into whether or not this truly is accessible? If we do this systematically, I think we're going to see quite a difference. And, you know, Neil and Barclays have been involved in this task force for some time, and we're poised to trial tools when we're looking specifically at suppliers that have a direct impact on the company's ability to get it right for colleagues, potential colleagues, and customers. I think the whole procurement territory needs to be more carefully nuanced in terms of who should be doing what at what stage in the process. But I'm really pleased, Cécile, to see that task force that you've got together. Bringing those parties together at senior level has to be part of the solution.
Thanks. We've talked about when accessibility is good for everyone, and very similar to kind of universal design principles, but be interested in reflections from people about when there's a trade-off, about when different people have different access needs. Neil, you mentioned this very briefly in the need for personalization, or about when we don't quite know what the accessibility is, when we're making new technologies and new technologies are developing so quickly, what would be accessible virtual reality? I think some of those things are obvious, but then some of those would not be obvious. So I'd be interested in reflections on what we don't know, when the situations when we don't know what is the best solution for accessibility.
So I think there's one of the most obvious things you can do is actually engage people with disabilities in the process of testing new technologies. That's something that we're actively doing. We're looking at human-machine interaction across a wide range of different areas, and there are enormous potential in some of the things that are coming along, like haptics and everything else. But working out how we make all of this accessible and what the guidelines will be. Guidelines and policies always follow. There's a lag in terms of adoption and everything else. But the best thing we can do is engage people early in the process.
Well, I would just echo what was being said. Actually, every time we launch a new product, we have it tested by people with different types of disabilities to make sure that it's really accessible. It's going beyond technical requirements. It's really about usability of the tool, of our applications.
I think it's difficult, if I'm quite honest. There's always a trade-off when it comes to accessibility, whether that's a trade-off between, you know, whether you make it fully accessible for one group of people with disabilities at the expense of others, or whether you make something fully accessible at the expense of usability, which is often a big problem. You know, 100% accessibility compliance often does not create something that's particularly usable by everybody. I would echo the points made about including people with disabilities throughout the process. I think one of the things we've seen is an increase in usability research in our organisation. Sometimes they don't always remember people with disabilities, but actually that broader piece of research that yes, does include people with disabilities, but remembering that people with disabilities don't often tell research agencies that they are disabled, and that making sure that we try and take from as broad a set of people as possible and not just reusing the same participants every time, I think is particularly important.
Just on that, I was wondering, has anyone been doing studies looking at productivity or efficiency improvements out of this, or it's just more accessibility in its own right?
I've done it in a slightly different way. I wanted to make the argument for usability and accessibility, and what I did was I created a cost of lost time calculator, which enables you to put in various different variables like the projected saving, the cost of running the project, etc. And then look at the impact of what it might mean in terms of number of seconds it takes you longer to do a certain action or whatever. And then multiply that up across the year and across the lifetime of the product and across the organization. And suddenly, what looks like a massive saving on one line of your budget sheet has a big impact on somewhere else. And it's not perfect, but what it does is it causes people to stop and think. And you can play around with the variables.
Not a particular piece of research per se, but an example of where building accessibility in from the start has a huge cost saving. A couple of years ago, we went through a process of looking at our mobile banking application. There were I'm going to say it politely, a number of accessibility issues with the banking application, and a cost of remediation was around £3 million. So we didn't remediate. But took the opportunity of a full platform redesign, which was coming up to build accessibility in from the start. The cost of doing that was around £30,000, mainly from consultancy fees, if I'm really honest, and the cost of doing user research. So we were able to save a significant amount of money in building accessibility in from the get-go, rather than from remediating.
a question to the panelists from Barclays. You mentioned accessibility as it pertains to commercial benefits and the importance to sort of highlight that to private sector employers. What would you say are sort of some of the top things that you look at from a commercial benefits perspective?
I think one of the main things is the spending power of households with people with disabilities is often quite an interesting statistic when people kind of pull the face of, I don't really think that's important. So in the UK, it's around £265 million per year. It's called the Purple Pound. It was mentioned in the video. We talk about $1 trillion globally. For us, actually, reputational damage and the reputational impact of accessibility is particularly interesting. What we found is where you create accessible and inclusive experiences, you gain loyalty. That no amount of marketing spend will ever get you. We've felt recently the opposite impact of that. So when you have an accessible product that then becomes inaccessible, the reputational impact that has is often greater than if you hadn't bothered in the first place. So the same mobile banking app went offline for 3 weeks for voice-over users, so screen reader users in the UK, and the amount of reputational damage that caused us, we're still going to recover from that next year and into the end of next year. So yes, there's a commercial, a pounds and pence value to it, but the reputational element to that is very important. And being aligned to this agenda, actually, I think creates some great opportunities for organisations. We're part of a number of communities, including Access Chat, which Neil and Deborah run online, and the reputational element of that, where we're one of the only big organisations that are part of that on a weekly basis, and really creates a sense that we're part of a community, that we want to be part of a community, and that yes, there is a commercial element to this, but we want to be there because it's the right thing for us to do, and it's a great market for us to want to be part of.
And just to follow on from that, I've been at events where Barclays have been talking about what they're doing in terms of accessibility with their apps and everything else. And I've been sat next to someone who said, I'm not disabled myself, but because of the stuff they're doing, I'm going to change banks and I'm going to bank with Barclays now. So it is, and it's the wider family of people with disabilities because of the way they're treated and, they're allowed access to stuff. So the commercial benefits, I think, are huge and are actually very difficult to calculate.
Okay, thank you. Everyone, please join me in thanking the panelists for their we now have a break for lunch from 12:30 to 1:30, so please come back here at 1:30. Lunch is one level down below us on level R2, and the lifts and/or stairs are to the left as you come out of this room behind the space, but it's just one level down, R2. Enjoy your lunch.